Uganda's put in place policies that support the growth of businesses in the region, but financing the private sector remains a major obstacle to creating more jobs for the most vulnerable citizens, increasing the nation's revenue and boosting the GDP. Joshua Mutambi, the Commissioner for Processing, Marketing MSMEs from the Ministry of Trade and Cooperatives, warned banks about slowing down the loan application process, which has stopped enterprises in various industries from expanding and forced other borrowers to turn to money lenders.
Where you go, banks will come and tell you we have these products. But when you go there, you'll be given 8 pages, and they are written in small fonts. You have to read and understand. The language is really financial. Colleagues, the ladies that were here presenting, let's simplify the language to our customers. Because as you can see from here, I'm sure they are going to come to you straight. But they are going to be hit by meeting those 8 or 20 pages, and they already have the contracts. All they need is the money. And that's the reason why most of our business people go to money lenders.
Additionally, business and commercial clients of Stanbic Bank addressed Vincent Sekiana's concerns by taking into account performance risks and payments, which highlighted requirements that a borrower must take into account before granting him or her a loan, as well as the type of the business the borrower is willing to invest in to prevent fraud on the part of the borrower.
If you say that you're going to supply, for example, food for the hungry with cows, have you ever dealt in such business? Where are you going to get such cows and that? So that is a performance risk. Have you ever dealt or handled such a huge contract like this? In the past, what contract have you held? It's all looking at the capacity, or will you perform, because we don't want to give you the money and before you know it, you fail, and they also fail to pay you, and before you know it, we are looking for you pay, and the interest keep accruing. So we want to do our due diligence. Are you in position to perform the LPO, the contract you've given? Then if that is a tick, we come to now, who is your employer? Food for the hungry. By the reason of fact that we are here, they are credible employers, and by the time we've dealt with them, they have been paying on time. So don't worry about the employer bit. If it's food for the hungry, it is already ticked there on our pre-qualified list. But the question will come to you, are you in position to perform that contract? So if those two things actually are a tick, then why don't we give you the money?
Speaking with Alex Dong, the Director of Programming for Food for the Hungry, he explains that the purpose of the Supplier Symposium is to raise awareness and sustainability in the public and private sector so that they can add value to their products, close funding gaps for projects, and deal with some of the challenges that they are facing in various areas.
Supplier Symposium is to ensure that we create awareness, especially among the private sector, that even in ending poverty, be it in Uganda or globally, they are an important component of ending poverty. But not only ending it, but also sustaining some of the interventions we implement. And one of the things which is critical in sustainability is how do you create linkages in, for example, the interventions you've done, and how can the private sector add value to them to move them beyond the project funding. At the end of the day, when we're evaluating the different companies to participate in our bids, which we really advertise, we evaluate them, and we evaluate them according to their portfolio and the capacity. And financing is a critical component and which the private sector faces, but it's important to share those linkages. How can they link up with the financial institutions to be able to get financing? The other critical challenge the private sector faces is reaching the last mile communities. As Food for the Hungry, we work some of the hardest places in this country. One of the critical hardest places is Karamoja, and the private sector in Karamoja is not well developed. And that's a critical challenge for those communities to get services. So that's one challenge the private sector faces. But what we are saying is FH has an advantage. We have those long-term catalytic relationships with the communities out there. So how do we ensure that we partner with the private sector and bring their services closer to the community? So it's a win-win situation. So FH, because of their relations with the community, brings the private sector to the last mile communities or the hard-to-reach communities.
More partnerships are needed to collaborate and ensure that private sectors are financed in order to develop businesses and create jobs for youths across the country in order to tackle the funding crisis. Andrew Babrije, Samuel Kirimunda, Smart 24, Business Today.